ठीक है स्टार्ट। नमस्कार, राम राम, सत श्री अकाल, सभी का स्वागत है एबीआईए के सेशन में। अ वेरी वार्म वेलकम टू एवरीवन। Today is 29th November. We are almost at the year end and looking at something big coming up in 2025, AI revolution, जिसके बारे में हम लगातार बात कर रहे हैं पूरे 2024 से। एबीआईए ने जब 2023 के अंत में ये शुरुआत की थी तो भी हम बात कर रहे थे कि कैसे एआई बदलने वाला है। हमने देखा कि कैसे फॉर्च्यून 500 कंपनीज में से 70% कंपनीज बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स लगा रही हैं एआई पर। एआई कैसे काम करने वाला है, मैं चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट होके कैसे एआई में इतना इन्वॉल्व हूँ, उस पर भी चर्चा करते हैं। मैं निपुण सिकरी, आपका होस्ट और दोस्त, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, कंपनी सेक्रेटरी। मेरा कंप्लाई हैप्पी करके एक छोटा सा फर्म है। एआई के जरिए मैं उसे और बड़ा बनाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ और मैं पुणे में स्थित हूँ। मेरे साथ मेरे दो मित्र हैं, अतुल और दिवाकर। दिवाकर का तो सरनेम ही मित्र है, तो आप सबके मित्र हैं वो, है ना। तो दिवाकर मित्र और अतुल मेहरा, हम तीनों ने मिलकर ये एबीआईए के बारे में सोचा और हमने शुरुआत की। एबीआईए क्या है? एबीआईए एक प्लेटफॉर्म है जहां पर एक कम्युनिटी है जहां पर आप सब आकर के एआई के बारे में बात कर सकते हैं। एआई से रिलेटेड कुछ भी आपकी क्वेरी है, एआई से रिलेटेड कुछ भी आपको पूछना है, कुछ भी आपको बताना है, तो आप जरूर कर सकते हो, है ना। तो इसके बाद अपन आगे बढ़ते हैं दिवाकर मित्र की तरफ। दिवाकर, हैंडिंग ओवर टू यू। दिवाकर का संपर्क शायद थोड़ा टूट गया है, तो दिवाकर से पहले अतुल को मैं इनवाइट करूंगा कि अतुल अपने प्रेजेंटेशन पर आगे बढ़े।
So guys, thank you very much for joining. And just to give the introduction of ABI, I want to tell a very small story, and which is a story of a schoolboy in a tier 3, tier 4 city. And this boy in the 2000s, yeah, sorry for the hiccup, guys. So I was telling the story of this tier 3 city. So no wonder, like in the tier 3 cities, there are so many hiccups in the internet. So there are problems like this. So this schoolboy in the 2000s, when he was growing at 16-year or 17-year-old, uh, he fell into the love of computers. But then everyone was saying like tech bubble is off, technology will not take off, and so on. Now, this boy, let's say in the city of Amravati, uh, he cycles to the college for a very long time. Now he's in love with the computers, like we are in the love with AI right now. But then people are telling like there is chaos, it's a tech bubble, it's not going to happen, there is Y2K and so on. And he's in the summer cycling to the college. And in the college also, like, in the teens, people have, they want to impress the friends, they want to impress the girls, they have other, to look cool and so on. So in all this chaos, he asks his dad, like, whether I can take a computer or whether I can take a bike. And his dad can afford only one thing. So his dad said, like, okay, you want to go for the higher studies? I can only afford you a computer. You do the programming, and then you go to a bigger city and then take the exam. So when this person goes into a bigger city, let's say Mumbai, he finds all the cool people, he finds all the students, they are talking, they have all the resources, they have all the education, they are coming in cool cars. And when this guy comes back, he's kind of devastated. So he thinks like everything is gone now. How can I compete with all these guys? And this story that I'm telling you is it's exactly the story when I talk to founders and investors who are visiting Silicon Valley. And many of people come back and then they say, like, they have all the resources, US has all the resources, Silicon Valley has all the resources. But going back to this small town boy, now he has two options. Most of the people are saying, okay, this is not going to happen in a small city. Then let's take small time jobs like 15,000, 20,000 rupees per, month and so on. But this guy sticks on to talk to more people. And then one of the seniors says, okay, stay true to your purpose and then it will compound very beautifully, right? So I can bet you on that this guy from the small town, even if he fails, even if he does not make to the post graduation degree, or he does not clear the competitive exam, there are high chances that he'll beat all the people in the bigger cities. There are high chances that he'll still succeed, he'll still progress. And when I'm saying these seniors, they are like Aishwarya, Madhu, and Vishnu. These are the people who started the things when nobody believed, like in India, all these things can be happening. So that's what ABI is about. It's like changing the vibe, not taking like AI is like such a big thing, but it cannot happen in India. We have to find our own narrative, like this small town guy from Amravati. Okay, so I'll wrap up on this note. So just an introduction to ABI. There are 80 plus AI startups which are these small town boys. There are mentors like Gokul from board member Google. We hosted last time Deepak Sharma, who introduced the digital banking in India. Aishwarya has worked with him. And now we have like new panel like Vishnu, Madhu, and Aishwarya. So on one side, there are suppliers and builders who are startups. On the other side, we are connecting with the enterprises who are adopting AI. And the third angle is the investment and the mentors. And I explained, how the mentors are connected. So it becomes a very, very cohesive community where it compounds the network over the time. So that's the introduction of ABI. I welcome all the three guests and thank you very much for joining us. I'll hand it over to Divakar to introduce the speakers.
Thanks, Atul. Today we have, before I introduce the speakers, I will just give a short intro on four pillars on which the ABIA works. The first pillar is to encourage collaboration among different AI startups to find complementary synergies. Second is help to build enterprise AI use cases that can go into the workflow of various B2B enterprises. Third is our investment wing, wherein we invest in promising AI startups early stage who are typically in a pre-MVP stage. And the fourth one is to enhance public understanding of AI, through which we organize events and the webinars. So in today's webinar, we have three esteemed speakers. We'll start with Madhusudan, who is the co-founder and CEO of M2P FinTech. He is a visionary in the payment space, having worked before at Citibank and Visa, where he has spearheaded groundbreaking innovations like Aadhaar-based payments, collaborating with the government of India. And he is a patent holder as well, and has been at the forefront of transforming fintech landscape since founding MTP in 2014, blending expertise with bold innovation. Our second speaker is Mr. Vishnu Acharya, who is the head of strategy, M&A, and ventures at Razorpay, which is one of the largest payment gateway runs one of the largest payment gateways in India. He has been with them for past 6 years and has run deals over 200 million plus, and has helped expand Razorpay to Southeast Asia as well. He is also a partner at Marshot VC, which is an angel fund started by the Razorpay founders, and has a portfolio over 60 companies and through Marshot VC. He was previously at BNP Paribas and a founder of OHS Daily. And our third speaker is Aishwarya, who is the co-founder and CEO of Hyperspace, and she is one of the leading women entrepreneurs in the fintech space, and has been certified as LinkedIn top project management voice. Welcome all the speakers to our event, and with that, I'd hand it over to Atul to start the webinar discussion questions.
Thank you very much, Divakar and Atul. Now I hand over to Prashant Hegde, who will be the panelist question asker for today. And let's hear it from Prashant.
Hi, thank you, Nipun. Hi. So first and foremost, thank you. It's a great privilege to be here today and to moderate this event. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Vishnu, Madhu, and Aishwarya for taking their time out from their busy schedules and participate in this event. We are truly honored to have you all with us. So without any further delay, let's dive into the questionnaires and allow our speakers to share their insights and experience with us today. So coming to the first question.
Just one more thing. Please try to keep the answers to 60 to 90 seconds so that we have enough questions and we can go on to the audience as well for asking their questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So the topic one would be like India's role in the global AI landscape. So this question goes to Madhu. So Madhu, as someone who's built a global company in 2014, when infra building wasn't the norm, now you have gone global, raised 850 CR, established your most spectacular outcomes built over 10 years. We know it's hard. So in AI era too, things like enterprise AI infra platforms are harder, need longer visions, higher skills. Are there enough founders and investors building today in India? What's your message to such pre-seed, seed stage founders or investors?
Uh, uh, Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I don't know if I'm qualified enough to speak on AI. I'm still a novice and I'm learning the ropes on what's happening around the world. I think it's generational shift that's playing out. And the way I would kind of articulate this is that, you have, you know, uh, labor that is getting replaced with technology at a very, very, very high level. And within that, if we kind of really look at what's really happening around some of the, playbooks, uh, it really gets down to thinking deeply about, what are the various, layers that are out there. So if you really look at, and if you draw parallel to compute and, how, compute changed in the web and the mobile sort of era, you would find that there are foundational sort of platforms that will be there, and then there is horizontals that will come in, whether it's data or things around how you can manage a variety of different platforms, and then you'll have vertical sort of playbooks that will emerge, right? So at a very 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 high level, uh, you know vertical playbooks is where I see a lot of work that needs to be done, because every vertical will need a lot of stuff that needs to sort of go in and will have a lot of relevance in terms of how contextually you can change things, right? As you come down this hierarchy, it gets so much more harder, so much more capital is required. So therefore, my request for very very early stage companies, as things are rapidly sort of evolving, pick specific areas where you could actually go in and innovate, and you will find a lot more traction on vertical focused playbooks rather than going as horizontals, because horizontal is going to get so much more harder, so much more players would come out, and eventually it will become a question of capital arbitrage, and whoever is able to have access to a lot of capital will actually win the race in terms of horizontal platforms, right? Yeah, that would be my opening remark, just to keep it short.
Thank you, Madhu. To Vishnu. Vishnu, you've been to the US recently, and most investors after visit to US say that AI is moving too fast and we are taking cautious approach, which in a subtle way means staying out till other people or US establishes the business models, or it means investor delving into more details to understand. Is there a room and need for India's own global narrative?
Yeah, no,
Vishnu,
first
is
of all,
there?
thanks for, yeah, I wasn't able to unmute myself. So first of all, thanks for having me. Glad to that people are taking time out on a Friday evening. Look, I think to immediately react to you, I'm very much in Bangalore, in around Koramangala. So US was a short trip. Otherwise, my heart and my life is here in Bangalore and in India. That having said, yeah, there have been observations, right? So let me maybe summarize what I've seen. Usually, a lot of core technology innovation, right? Whether that's infrastructure, hardware, go all the way back to mobile phones, or take Tesla and EVs, or take smartwatches, right? Usually start somewhere at the top. There are your early adopters, and we have the privilege to see how some of this change is coming along within early adopters of US, of India, and maybe for whatever reason, there's some larger critical mass in US who are those early adopters versus India. But that having said, the typical cycles of innovation and adoption have significantly changed over the last 10 to 20 years, right? So from that early adopters to critical mass adoption is going to be a much shorter time. And hence, I think India itself is going to see that adoption, and that worldview is going to be completely different, right? I mean, if you do this, kind of seminar, say, 2, 3, or even maybe 6 months out, I could have a bot of myself here, and it's not the real version of myself even, right? And that's the power of AI. So that's going to happen. So I think it is moving fast. Your first part of your question. So the second part, look, partly to what Madhu said, I think India is a very deep market, and it's a very, very big and unique market. So if you pick up deep problems that are specific to India, there's a lot to build out, and both founders understand that and VCs understand that, and that's happening. Been examples in the past, whether it's a Zomato, Swiggy beating a Food Panda, Uber Eats, or a Flipkart versus an Amazon, or even now Ola, Namaya 3, and Rapido versus Uber, right? So there are going to be India first problem statements nuanced to us. And we're seeing some players also come in, whether it's specific to our linguistics or something else, which is going to need India first solutioning, maybe more vertical, maybe more application layer to begin with. But yeah, that's my broad thoughts on how AI is going to change. And I think the investors are bullish.
Great. Thank you so much, Vishnu. On to you, Aishwarya. So you mentioned innovation should be 10 to 100 times, and you launched products in Kotak and HSBC from scratch. You favor institutionalization, the AI framework. Would you like to shed light or institutionalization it, and where to start? Who should lead it or build it? Or it should be pro bono workshops like ones by ABAI? What's your thoughts?
Prashant, first, thanks a lot for having me. I've been building for a long time in banks, and now even in Hyperface, I see my role more of a builder. Right. Somewhere maybe it's a blessing of my generation. We've only been building new things, right? Be it the Rails. I still remember seeing the first specs of Aadhaar eKYC and getting excited about the possibilities. Way back, I remember the circular that came out which mandated second factor authentication for payments and wondering what it would lead us to. We have reached friction-free payments. We have reached friction-free KYC. So for me, like Madhu said, it is the horizontal opportunities of AI that interests me. But having been building in banks for a long time and now building for banks outside for my own organization, what I worry is about the right protocols, the right frameworks. The joke, much whatever joke, is it's not like innovation is sparse in banks. Banks and financial services operate a lot on reputation, operate a lot on building trust, right? And something like AI at its heart needs a lot of data, which also banks possess. But the doubt where it comes from is deploying an external learning model or deploying tools which will use a bunch of data. The end user experience, when you come to generative AI, issues like a hallucination, which might not be much for a e-com, but for a bank, it is a make or break in trust, which is why frameworks and protocols in my mind become important. I like to give the example of account aggregator framework, right? I mean, open banking was not new. We had all heard about it. I mean, but it was about who moves. And when a framework came about, which gave the industry confidence that, okay, this is the data that will come out of my system, this is the data that will come in. While AI has a bunch of use cases which are interesting, and a lot of large banks are already at certain maturity levels. In my mind, if either the regulator or an independent body like yours takes up 3-4 use cases, for example, fraud in payments is a big concern in the industry now, and create certain frameworks around data sharing, around a common library, etc., built on AI, I feel that could accelerate AI adoption faster. That's where I was coming from when we discussed and I spoke about frameworks around AI. Without guardrails, my worry is AI will become very institutionalized innovations and not what you're talking about for it to get adapted at a country scale. To me, the concern is that level of adoption, for it to happen, there needs to be a larger framework in place.
Sure. Thanks. Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Aishwarya and Madhu. Just one follow-up question, like till now, all these infrastructure or rails have been built by sponsored, government-sponsored digital public infrastructure and so on. And there has been a lot of talk, like Bloom Ventures, they have been talking a lot about Indian private sector should also come forward to build infrastructure and roles, which is the case in US. So maybe Aishwarya, 30 seconds for you, and then we go to Madhu, and then we ask whether Vishnu will sponsor this kind of initiative or not. But short answer, sorry. Yeah. Vishnu, sorry, you're on mute.
I'm saying I don't think any of us in this room are going to say no to that. I mean, of course, Vishnu has to open the purses. Jokes aside, I think uh, broader frameworks or broader setups or tools to be co-built are not the issue. But typically, I think somewhere we are also spoiled by what you're calling as digital public infrastructure, right? We are used to these things being set out, and if somebody takes the lead, I think it'll be great. But I think people are used to seeing it, and maybe that's the expectation here as well. I don't think there is a objection per se for a private protocol to emerge here.
Okay, so Madhu, over to you. I think you have been contrarian building the infrastructure
Yeah.
when most of the market believes like it should be with the government. What's your take in the AI?
So I
Should
mean, like, I
AI
think
be?
the perspective here is that, everything is going to hit a hard reset, right? So in terms of how you operate, how you run, how you actually manage businesses, how you manage people. So therefore, it's not an either or. I think each of us individually will have to do whatever we have got to do to our business, to our own organizations, and the public good will actually be a fuel that will actually accelerate that adoption if it were, right? So in a lot of ways, if you just pick in the industries that we are in, all of us, right, whether it's Aishwarya, me, or Vishnu, it has gone through its own change. There's no banker is waking up thinking, how am I going to change the bank today using AI, right? So reality is that it has to operate or come in at driving efficiency, and it really starts at things like detection, right? And then it will actually move into automation, and then it goes into prediction. It's not the other way, right? So you're not going to, no regulator is going to allow saying, let systems, agentic networks figure out how to underwrite. It's not going to happen. But the reality of it is that unless you start somewhere where you are able to drive efficiency, you are not really going to, see the light of the day, right? And a case in point is like, a decade ago, robotic automation was a big deal, right? And AZ16 had put out a blog on this where they spoke about that manual moving into automation 1.0, which was really RPA. But you could have LLMs actually take over that and really deliver the true promise of what that automation should have looked like, right? So therefore, there's a lot that needs to be done individually, and then there's collectively, and then there's a public good that will sort of overarchingly will have to change. But I don't think anybody who's saying, let somebody else figure out, I will learn at their expense, is actually fooling themselves than not, actually being crazy about what can disrupt themselves in the next 1 or 2 years. I think the speed, to Vishnu's point, the pace of that change is something that we are going to get, blindsided by. That's the big delta difference between what we are seeing in tech in India vis-a-vis, our Western counterparts.
Thank you, Madhu, for being so straightforward. So Vishnu, again, just follow-up question on this. Let's say, like Madhu started the infrastructure company in 2014. If some startups in ABI or otherwise, they take this Herculean task, as Madhu said, like it cannot become on at somebody else's expense. Would you be open to fund this kind of ambitious startups, or do you are looking at the application layer more of it? Just
Mute. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I don't think I can control my muting and unmuting. So, no, sorry. Look, I don't think either me or anyone in this room, I can't speak for Madhu and Aishwarya, but anyone else or anyone around us can single-handedly fund any of this kind of stuff, right? This is world-changing stuff. Even in the US, if you look at who is really driving it, it's no single player, right? Of course, there is one or two big names, but if you take a next 10-year view, there are going to be multiple players who eventually end up getting the power of AI in the hands of retail consumers, retail citizens, businesses, right? Right from the infrastructure built to, sort of the fine tuning to the final application layers and then the end consumption. So while there will be some companies that do all of it, most companies will have to work hand in hand to kind of, get to that kind of impact, right? And let's take fintech even as a small example, whether it's Razorpay doing, acquiring payments, or Aishwarya or Madhu, all of us, have infrastructure built on top of other infrastructure, which is also built on top of other infrastructure, working with other parallel infrastructure, right? So that's how, a large ecosystem will be built. So I think I'm really, optimistic about the capital that will come into India from outside as well as within India into AI. And I think we'll see a lot of this happen. And I think it's a fair bit of responsibility on most ecosystem stakeholders within the tech world to kind of drive some of that.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Let's proceed further. So we have a second topic speaker. So building AI companies in India. So the question goes to Madhu. Our research say you are establishing global footprints. Do you believe India startups are ready to create AI first global companies? How would such a startup look today? How did you look in initial days?
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky to be at a point where there weren't many people who understood infra. So we took our time to, get our ropes around what we should be building and all that. I think if you're building in 24, if I were building again in 24, I don't think we'll have that luxury of time. But more importantly, to my earlier point, it's not going to be that, we're going to just port out of what we are doing today and port into a new world. That transition will be, will happen in a manner where, especially in businesses that we are in, where we are touching, financial, touching money, and it's a matter of, playing on trust from our, customer standpoint. So that adoption would actually mean, how do you actually go in a sort of structured manner, right? So it's not going to be that case of saying today there's somebody who's doing it, tomorrow systems are going to take over and envelop that particular business, right? So therefore, India today is looked at, and especially in financial services, and particularly for us, India is seen as this first world country, which is actually making a lot of these leapfrogs that could actually happen at population scale, what we have delivered in the last 7-8 years as a country. So there's a lot of economies look at India to actually adopt banking and payment capabilities. And if you're able to actually, intertwine that with, AI capabilities, I think that would become a winner. And, it's not just like one business or one company that will do it. I think at an ecosystem level, we have a chance to make like India, like the fintech factory for the world, right? So all solutions that we get built in India will be population scale, will be at a price point that is nobody can match and compete. That's the only thing I can give our bankers credit to, saying they've really pushed the envelope to make it like affordable for them. And then you anywhere else in the world that you go, you can actually, make it a very compelling proposition on the commercial side.
Great. Thank you, Madhu, for your insights. Coming down to you, Aishwarya. So we learned hyperspace handles hundreds of thousands of cards, enabling large-scale systems for banks. Are you incorporating AI into this, and how does a CXO decide whether to build in-house capabilities of or use third-party AI solutions and AI consultants?
We are Hyperface. We are a credit cards as a service platform. We started on credit cards. Today, we do much of our work around the middleware enrichment layer for banks, as well as some core products around credit line and co-branded credit cards as well. So yes, we do work with a bunch of banks. We have about 6 million, 7 million credit cards that we are operating on top of for various use cases. See, to me, I don't think it's just a hyperface question. To me, it is for anybody who's building infra. See, again, 8 years, 10 years back, core systems did not have APIs. I mean, Madhu, full kudos for what you have built, right? Madhu has also done the sales of API banking while building M2P. And for a bunch of us, at least we didn't have to start from there, Madhu, right? So at that time, building APIs itself was something that a company could do. But today, like when we go, core systems are sitting with APIs. In my mind, that is how AI will also evolve. You cannot keep AI out of the door and say, I'm helping you innovate. Whatever is the latest in innovation, if you are a company that's going to be in the forefront of helping banks do infra and innovation, that's what we help banks with. It is inevitable that you have to adapt to these latest technologies that emerge to see how your end product can be enriched for the users. Now, within AI, are there frameworks available? Are there tools available? The biggest challenge, see, again, this is context, right? We are working with banks who are anyways paranoid, even for something like a transaction data sharing, it requires a 6 months, and I don't blame them. I've been on that side. You're the safekeeper of people's money, so it needs that kind of scrutiny and respect to data. Then in a scenario like that, where it is a win to be able to get into a bank, to be able to get transaction data, typically the mindset would always to build these things in house. But having said that, expertise, use cases, that's why I'm saying there will be opportunities to collaborate that will evolve. The very important thing is to dispel the myths around AI, remove the fears around AI so that this collaborative process becomes possible. Today, in the enrichment layer I'm talking about, banks are more open because they understand API banking. And then when we come in as a middleware and we say, oh, we can work on top of your core system APIs, it becomes easy for banks to understand that. I think that evolution will be required in AI also before we get to the stage where we work with partners as well.
Right. Madhu, again, like kind of follow-up question from what Aishwarya said. So this is coming from when I go to, pitch to enterprises, I find there is a question like whether to take it off the shelf or whether to build in-house. And many a times I see a disconnect between the top management and the middle management. Like middle management thinks, okay, we can do it, everything, we can do it. Many a times I tell people like, it's not your core work. Like you're in banking, certain parts are not your core work. I go to engineering, I tell, okay, your automotive is your core work. AI is not your core work. How do you tackle that? How that decisioning within the company should happen, like what to take off the shelf and what to build in-house?
Sorry, was that for me, Atul?
You are on.
Or Vishnu?
Yeah, Madhu.
I think he was referring to you, Madhu.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's I wish I had a very short magic wand answer to that, Atul. I think the challenge is that, the truth be said, most banks' technology teams are or procurement teams. They're not technology shops, right? So it takes a lot of time for them to come around to the fact that they need to sort of work. And we have seen this transition in the last 10 years where there was selective acceptance and a lot of no to actually now saying being more open to and amenable to actually testing new startups, testing new solutions, testing new ideas. That transition happened in less than 10 years, right? And today, most large banks are open to the idea of partnering with fintechs and things like that, right? So therefore, a lot of these AI solutions that, and I started with this, right? So if you actually pick up a niche, so if you look at, things that can help drive efficiency, there will be a chance that you will get to actually go demonstrate and prove that, something can work, right? In that, how much of it you use for demonstration effect, really get one or two customers excited and make the product work, which really becomes a MVP for a young company. More than having it as a fancy product, flashy product that you can sort of show out, right? It takes time, but the good news is that time has shortened in the last decade or so, and it will continue to improve, hopefully, with all of our efforts.
Right. So going on to the next topic, it's about AI and collaboration opportunities. So this question goes to Vishnu. At Razorpay, we've learned about your collaboration with Peak 15 and investing in AI. Could you share the vision for this? How important are partnerships for you and why? What role communities like ABAIA do to promote partnerships?
Yeah. So look, I think the fund initiative is quite a specific one. May not be as relevant here. It's a venture. It's an early stage venture fund we've launched with Peak and Lightspeed to invest in B2B startups. But we do see a lot of the use cases there coming along for vertical specific themes. So we've seen AI companies or AI startups who are building Gen AI plus solutions on top of open language or open LLMs to kind of help out on specific problem statements for banks, fintechs, right? Think KYC and onboarding, think anti-money laundering fraud, think of, customer experience in chatbots, or even reconciliation and FinOps, financial operations. So a lot of that, right? Anywhere where you're seeing component of human inputs that can be automated via Gen AI. I think that's where there's a lot of opportunity, and they're seeing some of those, right? We're seeing them from the fund, but like more interestingly, we're seeing how we can partner with them for razor pay. Because at the end of the day, and I'll maybe later on come to how we're using Gen AI, but at the end of the day, there is going to be specialists, and they're probably going to be able to do a good job if you partner with them. And it's a win-win in some way, because there's a lot of founders out there innovating on niche use cases, and if they find larger applications of those use cases in bigger companies, that will be an interesting adoption of those. So I mean that's broadly a little bit about the fund and how we are looking at partnerships. But what you folks can do, for it, I think to be honest, I think there's still a large need to bridge the gap between founders and early stage use cases of adoption of Gen AI or solutions of Gen AI and enterprises, right, where they can apply it. And today there's still that gap where a large enterprise will still seek Valley solutions from maybe like a GitHub Copilot, right, for their engineers, or maybe someone else for their marketing teams. And it makes sense because, that's what we are seeing and learning. But there are going to be very specific solutions within India. And we see that on the ground, but it's not that every enterprise is going out looking for them. So I think there is that gap, and maybe that's the gap, communities like y'all can bridge by pulling both sides in together with some specificity of matchmaking, if I may, right, so that it's productive and useful.
Right. Thank you, Vishnu. Madhu, with your global expansion plans, what's your view on the same? Maybe.
Yeah, I think just to build on what Vishnu said, right? I think there's no way that somebody can get all of this at one go. So the only way to do this is to actually sort of partner up. But if you really abstract out and look at how it would play out, and I would put this in 3 or 4 sort of different buckets, right? So you'll have a large pool of data, right? So how do you kind of orchestrate the data, and then what predictive or optimization that you can run on it, which becomes the second pillar. And then, using that, how do you really automate, right? So if you are, let's say, if there's a loan journey or if there is a customer onboarding journey, how can you help agentic networks to take over that, that pool of data and really apply that to whatever automation that you want to sort of achieve? And eventually, how do you render this to the customer, right? What's the storefront on which you are going to distribute that? So what experience that you're going to deliver? So, these 4 broad buckets is how I see automation happening, and then there would be layers that will actually kind of build that orchestration on top of it, which will deliver that whole experience. Eventually, kind of having that user have that element of AI delivering that product sort of come in and do that, right? So therefore, if somebody were to do this, right, assuming that a bank wants to deliver to this sort of promise, you can't do it. No one company can deliver all of this. There would be very specific companies that you'll need to partner up and sort of do that. So therefore, I see a lot more collaborative work, sort of coming in. Companies of different sizes can actually, a very young company, but doing a lot of deep work on data, could be a great partner for a very large enterprise customer because they're solving for a very specific problem, is how I see that playing out. So therefore, a lot more enterprise customers will actually be more amenable to trying very niche products. And therefore, my earlier point also is that for early stage founders, I don't think you should worry about competition being an large sized company or an enterprise customer. Your agility is your mode, and your ability to actually sort of iterate and be offering solutions will find a lot more relevance for your customers and enterprise customers specifically.
Great. Good insight. Thanks, Madhu. Thank you, Madhu. Okay, coming down to the next part is pushing boundaries in AI innovation. So the question is to you, Aishwarya. How can India enable more women leaders to lead AI innovation at this scale? What has worked for you that others can emulate? Are enough women taking lead at such early stage? Does the diversity make the world innovation better, or it's the same if led by men or women?
Yeah, sorry, I am not a big fan of bringing diversity into everything. I mean, everybody gets here with grit and sweat, right? Of course, women coming in for younger women as somebody older, I understand that it is important. I mean, I'm not against diversity, of course. I mean, I support. Thanks for having me. It's good to see one woman on the panel, right? And we need more of it. But let's not just make everything a diversity thing. Sorry, because innovation is innovation, and people who get it, and gender doesn't matter. It's about people who have the. I remember when I started consulting, I called my company, why not consulting? Because I was tired of asking that question sitting inside banks, right? And we need more people challenging status quo. We need more people trying to think differently. Maybe the better framework is how do we get more innovations and more patents coming out of India, right? Today, we are so proud of UPI, we are so proud of Aadhaar, but then as you pointed out rightly, it's also somewhere the digital public infrastructure that has enabled those innovations. How do we get more individuals aspiring for innovations? Every success story, be it an M2P, be it a Razorpay, it inspires 100 others. And maybe that's what India needs at this stage. Those AI success stories, we need a NVIDIA or whatever equivalent here. And somewhere, I think we've been fantastic in software related development and infrastructure. If we could get that market leadership and get an Infosys out of AI coming from India, I think that's what will motivate a lot more people. It's really nothing to God with gender and AI specifically, Prashant.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thanks. Just a minute. I guess Atul has something to top up.
Yeah, guys, I just want to add, like, this is the main focus of ABI. We are making a very cozy kind of community, which is compounding, which is cohesive, where bold ideas, the innovations are kind of encouraged. In our group, people come up with the ideas, and I mean, we are encouraging because in the rest of the world, you will of course get challenged. Like even if it's India or US, the innovation will be challenged. But there has to be a very cohesive community, and I've been reading a lot about communities. I read about Marwadi communities to all the way San Francisco A16Z and YCs and so on. When the cohesivity of the ideas come in, it multiplies. And that's the kind of design we are building with the ABI. You see, like on one side, we have the AI consulting company, we have the 80 AI startups, we have the adopters of the AI and investors. So all thinking in same direction in the case of innovation-led exponential growth. It doesn't have to be only growth where we repeat the things, but which, like as Madhu said, bringing the efficiencies. So thank you very much. Back to Prashant.
All right, thanks. All right. Vishnu, there's a question for you. Given your experience in both India and abroad, where investors from India are pushing boundaries with foundations set in e-commerce era, are new age investors like you establishing a new narrative in AI or in general? What's your personal wish list of change you wish to bring?
Yeah. Oh, see, look, I'm not an AI specialist. I'm an AI, but because I deeply care about how the world is going to look for India next decade, I try over my weekends to see how things beyond fintech are going to look like, right? And of course, fintech as a large will also have influence of AI. That having said, yeah, like if you look at the US, right, uh, generally what's happened is obviously been great talent, a lot of capital, and then this sort of underlying intent and ambition to drive change, innovation using technology in all aspects, right? I feel like that's been happening for some time now. It's been almost maybe 30 years now that's been happening. India has had a shorter cycle, right, but a much faster cycle, and it's happening in a very similar way in India. So while the question is, hey, are investors and both operators, founders looking at AI with the same weight here versus US? Very much so, right? The group size is different. I think I don't think that changes the depth with which people are thinking about it, or at least technology leaders in India are thinking about it. How it manifests again will be for the same reasons I called out earlier. The time it might take for adoption, I think Aishwarya alluded earlier, in the banking world, where the challenges will exist. In other parts of other industries, similarly, there will be challenges, right? But I'm sure they'll be solved, and hence the kind of adoption will come through. But that having said, you have to be a little bit more specific. India as a whole is a land of opportunity, right? AI is, of course, today's topic, but if I take a few steps back, you take a small corner of anything within consumption, manufacturing, trade, there is still opportunity, right? And a growing market, unlike the US. And I mean, they are as well, but we're growing way faster, right? If you see our GDP, our growth rates on any of categories, what we're talking about of e-com, payments, and more. So I think there is a lot of opportunity across the board. I think it's really about going deep within these categories and seeing, what's really the uniqueness within a problem statement that within India and solving for that. So if you take a small example, take, maybe Krutrim, right? Or Sarvam. These are two India first AI companies. And while they have different startups, going in hypothesis was that there's going to be a lot of regional languages in India, which, US is not going to solve for, right? In terms of, both at the end interactions of, our, citizens and let's say when they interact with bots, whether voice or chat. And hence, regional language optimization will be important. So that's a unique to India problem, right? And people are solving for it as early as starting last year. So I think all of that is happening. We'll see more and more of it across industries. And we'll see some results as well of how it shapes up. I mean, for us, we actually saved almost, I think, almost 25% of our now customer tickets come from are solved by our AI chatbot versus humans, right? And that doesn't mean that, the jobs are gone. It's just that the people are so much more empowered and productive. So those things will keep shaping up in different industries.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Vishnu, for your insights. Well, we are coming to the end of the session, but before we lay off, there is a final advice session that we brought. So, Madhu, what's your actionable advice to founders who are building AI products?
Okay, so I have a contrary intake, right? Every company has to become an AI company. It's not that they're going to be a separate set of AI companies, right? Nobody today goes out and says I'm an internet company. So very soon we will have that as the norm. So there isn't going to be a cohort of companies that are just AI. So therefore everybody has to think. Otherwise they they probably will not be existing in a few years' time. But yeah, so that being said, I think for us, some of the early, to what, Vishnu just articulated, in areas where we could drive efficiency, leveraging AI, like, in our operations process and all, our business would have grown by an order of magnitude of 4 or 5x, but we have still kept the same or a similar or a smaller size of the team, right? So it's not that jobs are going away, it's becoming a lot more efficient by an order of magnitude where it's not marginally value additive, it's actually exponentially value additive. And therefore, and we have kind of been able to slide that into processes with banks and all of that, where nobody is waking up and saying, hey, what changed, right? It's
Right.
been gradual because, we obviously had to see this coming and make sure that we actually streamline processes, businesses, products to actually reflect that and, have that adopted. And every company will go through that journey as founders realize that that's the only way to kind of stay relevant. That's how I would put it. So there's no special cohort of AI companies for sure. Yeah. So
Thank you. Vishnu, what's your advice to angel investors, fellow investors on AI?
Yeah. So look, if you're talking specifically to angel investors, I would just be mindful of investing, right? Angel investments as an asset class is very tricky, and I think if not fully understood is a recipe for disaster. So I think you have a lot of mutual funds, index funds, our markets are doing really well. But with that disclaimer, I think in India, I think there's going to be a lot of, so we have the right talent. A lot of that talent is going to be finding very niche ideas and pieces to build for AI native products, right? And as they do it, if you find the ones who are really deep on the vertical depth in their solutioning, the way Madhu articulated, and they have the right India specific nuances and early adoption, because some of these are maybe here and now, some a little bit in the future, they can be very interesting for angel investors. I mean, that's what angel investors should look for within AI categories. That having said, AI specifically is going to be a relatively longer, competitive and expensive journey. So there is going to be need for capital. It's not a thin stack. I mean, you can build thin stack products, but it's not something where you can, build it with very, very little capital and then, find ways to monetize it right from day zero and then, run your business growth basis your revenues. It is going to be a technology leverage kind of a business model, which means it will need capital. And hence, some of those nuances aside, I think there is a lot of opportunity. So if angel investors find those, of course, right, no doubt they should invest.
Great. Thank you. Last but not least, to Aishwarya, what's yours to CXOs, enterprises on adoption of AI?
See, for me, the trust building is very important, right? Because my biggest worry when it comes to AI is there is just too much talk on AI, right? We need to go very use case by use case, tangible use cases which build trust and which create business impact, right? I mean, it's very easy to take on too much. I mean, build 40 models, 50 models, let the AI develop. But honestly, I don't think we have time for that. While there is a whole rush to buy AI, one thing could stall the entire progress. So I feel it's something that's a collective responsibility for builders in AI to ensure that the models are accurate. We are not building things for the sake of speed, forsaking accuracy, because yes, we are running against them, but at the same time, this is still not as evolved a buyer's market as it appears to be. There is a huge amount of interest in AI and what it does. So it's very important for people who are building an AI to demonstrate that early seeds of success in a very strong way instead of trying to go for a expansive approach and trying to achieve too much with little impact.
Great. Thank you so much, Aishwarya.
Hey, just one thing to add to what Vishnu said, right? I think we as a startup community, India is still shying away from a lot of M&A. The AI will and the need for capital will actually force us to actually adopting. So we'll be more open to M&As, much as how it happens in the US, right? So it's not a taboo to actually get merged. It's been a challenge for us. We've done like a series of acquisitions. It's so hard to actually do M&A in India, which also should hopefully AI change, right? Yeah, the side note.
Great. Good thoughts. Thank you.
So that's a good takeaway, Madhu. So what Madhu is saying for AI builders in India is build something interesting, guys. We are here to look at it seriously. And you've got another M&A expert as well. I'm sure rest of you all are taking notes, right, Madhu?
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you so much. This comes to the end of the session, but perhaps there are a few questions that comes from the audiences, and I would want to pass it on to Atul to take it further.
Yeah, we'll take the audience questions. We'll take the audience questions first, and then we'll have a closing remarks for the ABI. And the first question is from Sunil Kumar. Can panel share, maybe Vishnu, you can take this question. Can panel share the developments on implementing AI in marketing and sales?
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a very here and now use case for AI, right? Like I think our marketing, especially our social media teams, have found an immense value in creating collaterals, both static content as images, videos, very quickly at much lesser cost with great visuals, and in great speed, right, and great frequency. So I think they have seen a lot of outcome from it. So that's specifically marketing teams, social marketing, performance marketing teams. Sales teams can also see it in terms of a lot more of data capture, sales team reviews, sales individual, sales head reviews, and how the kind of sentiment analysis is when salespeople talk to customers, feedback loops. So a lot of these are more specific use cases within sales and marketing that we are seeing AI create a lot of value.
Madhu, like the same question to you, like as I spoke about you, like every company has a DNA, like banking company or engineering company. And certain people have sales and distribution network. They see it as a peripheral, like, which can be outsourced, like CRMs and ERPs can be taken from outside. So AI in sales and marketing, should it go outside the company or should it be built inside the company?
Yeah, I think the barriers for somebody to build inside will actually, start reducing. In fact, this morning or yesterday, I read about somebody actually doing a sales call through an AI agent, and the AI agent actually, is this cold calling. The AI agent actually talks about them being an AI agent and taking the call and how effortlessly the call went. When people are actually curious to try out whether they test the other side. Contrary to, if you're going to slam the call if it's a human, the success rate of the call continuing beyond 10 seconds was much higher because there was an AI agent on the front, right? So I think these are interesting human behavior elements that are coming out. You probably will have better success rates, and the ability for an AI agent to be shameless and continue to persist is much higher than human. So some of that will kind of evolve, and we'll find out. Maybe some AI tool will actually give a Bhojpuri joke when somebody is not taking or convinced about a product, right? So I think the first order effect, in fact, is really about, at least in financial services, is really about how do you deliver better experiences to customers, and that truly will shape how things can get better, right? Because that's the common joke amongst a lot of us, when we are serving banks, is that never give the first product, to the bank CXOs, because you're going to be in trouble, if they test and, they actually have a bad experience, right? So therefore, if they actually have a pleasant experience using AI, they're going to be a lot more convinced about it. I think that truly brings that down to a level where people understand and get it. Not that they should not get it, but it's the fact that what goes behind in this technology is hard to explain to someone who's an outsider, right? So, so I think a lot more of that happening. The front end is actually is going to force a lot of that happening. And I saw this with when Modi ji attended a GFF. He actually took a selfie and told us to actually download Namo app. And he said that you can use AI to spot you with your own selfie amongst the hundreds of people who are there, right? So if the leader of the country is talking about AI and saying what the application use case is going to be, every business owner can actually do that to their own businesses, employees, and teams, right? So that's how it will get propagated into sort of broader adoption, is how I would put it, right? So
yeah, makes sense. Madhu, you reminded me of one of my clients. So they actually gave the Modi jacket to actually Modi ji. So he actually wears it. And then there was a lot of traffic on their website, and now they're talking to AI, and customers are very happy to talk to AI rather than humans. So exactly, the out of curiosity also, that's a very interesting element playing out. So before I take the question on healthcare, because our audience or speakers are from the banking, uh, Aishwarya, this question goes to you because you've done a lot of product launch and so on. So Varun Gaur is one of the startups in ABAIA. He has launched this AI agentic product management. So what's your view, like AI agents taking over their role and so on?
My product managers already use ChatGPT heavily. Yeah, I can read through the PRD and I get very impressed. And I'm going back and typing the prompts in ChatGPT. See, I don't know. I mean, of course, Varun, I'm sure it's a great solution to have. But to me, there is still a little human touch when you're building products, right? The way you understand your users. I remember long back, we were taught to go to merchant areas. I was product manager for the POS machine business for a bank, and I used to visit all the merchant areas in different markets. The nuances were immense. The way a Sarojini Nagar market guy would react for a rent on the terminal versus you go to a Taj and try to put up a machine. The economics, the nuance of the customer in product building, in pricing. I'm not sure. See, within every function, I'm sure there is that operational repetitive task, but unfortunately, doing that is what is going to grow your core skill set. Yes, when you're an APM, you're writing maybe tons of PRDs, but what is going to make you a great SPM or a product leader is exactly that grunge work. So I'm not sure if it's a great idea to give things to AI, and eventually we'll be looking at a scarcity of product leaders because people straight away want to. I'm sure Vishnu experiences all the MBA kids wanting to do strategy, right? I mean, that little grunge is important. So I'm not very sure on product specific thing, but having said that, Varun, that is nothing about your product, just my thoughts on AI and product management. The other piece I am interested in know is bringing in AI into the product development process and seeing how AI can enhance the end solution. If there is anything around that, I would love to know more.
Okay, so I think these are a couple of examples. We talked about sales and marketing. We talked about product management. So there are like 80 AI startups. Many of the things which may not be core in the company. So that's where we bring the ecosystem together. And Prashant is running the AI consulting company. He lets you lay the roadmap and so on. Vishnu, last question to you. This is on the Madhu said, experience of the customer. So our next builder is building kind of AI experience for patients. how would you like it? Would you, if you have, you should not have a cough, but let's say you have a slight cough, would you go to this tech doctor, AI doctor?
I don't think I inherently would have any issue in trying it out, right? Of course, I will have some skepticism in maybe going through the diagnostic. I'll have some skepticism going in maybe taking the consultation if it's prescriptive in terms of medication or something else. But that having said, I'll have no issues in at least going through the diagnosis in any way. That having said, I think what you're talking about of a complete AI doctor is maybe a few steps ahead. But even today, I think there's a lot happening in healthcare, right? Like primary healthcare clinics today can ingest all of your reports, all of your blood reports, your various test results in whatever format in just a few minutes, right? Which was not historically doable. And we were, of course, reliant on a different kind of health record system that had to be set in place. Today, all of that is changing. So generally, I think a lot of patient experience will change significantly, whether it's ingestion of records, whether it's a lot better prognosis and diagnosis, and then prescription, whether it's on lifestyle or on medication, right? Whether it's OTC or not. So I think I see a lot of change. I'll probably be very comfortable going through some of that. But yeah.
Yeah. So that was Sandeep Saxena. He's building this thing. So as a closing remark and the final question, and then we wrap up. So we kind of had a demo, like how the cohesive things, like when people are there, enterprises, investors, how the decisions are so intertwined. The builders, the users, investors, and so on. So last, which is a wrapping question to Madhu, Vishnu, and Aishwarya. Maybe we can start with Madhu. Madhu, what do you think ABI can play the role? The idea behind this is having a very cohesive community of people who are leading the innovation-led exponential growth. Now, that innovation, of course, is not only the builders, but also the adopters of AI and then the investors of AI. So what is the role of a community that you can build, or any insights you want to say, okay, build it this way, this will be better, or so on?
I'm not an expert on it, but I think generally speaking, I mean, building community is really hard. You just have to persist with, in terms of how much you actually, give in from a community perspective. And more so in this case where, you start with something and then you discover, let's say you start building something and you discover in 2-3 months that maybe that idea was not like foundationally very strong, and you keep sort of moving from one idea to the other, keep iterating that idea. In that context, the community is like really powerful, right? So you need a sounding board to actually go out and kind of talk about it. Typically, early stage, when you're in a -1 to 0 sort of journey, you don't freely talk about your idea because you feel that somebody will take away. The idea is not the actual business, the execution is, right? But in AI, the more you actually exchange about what you're trying to build, you'll actually get that refined and be in a better place as a community. So in that context, I think having a very strong community sort of helps, and each of us have to do our bit to actually sort of contribute and make that better, right? So yeah, I don't know the specifics of what it takes to build a community, Atul, so but yeah, that would I would sort of put it.
So Vishnu, as you offer to be the early adopter of the doctor experience, AI doctor experience. So what's your view, like, finding the early adopters and early investors, like -1 to 0, 0 to 1? Does the community play a role? How Mass looks at it, and so on?
So absolutely right. I think communities play a very, very large role if built well, run well, in terms of creating value for the participants or the members of the community, right? Usually what I've seen is these communities have to be laser sharp focused on a common goal, which is crisp and clear, and all of the members have to actually care deeply about that goal in some sense. And then against that goal, if there is a leader of the community who's then helping all of the participants really, learn faster, learn from each other, engage, promote collaboration in various ways, that's going to probably create that force multiplier effect of the community as a whole, rather than individuals as building alone. So I think I think that's maybe the role for players like you. We probably will not do it in the AI space. We do it in other spaces. We have Razorpay Rise, the community for founders. Marshot is more of an angel fund, so I won't call that a community. I there are so many more around us, right? Successful and really some finding their space. So I think a lot of opportunities, especially in the AI space, because I at least don't know as many communities in India around the AI space besides all.
Thank you. So Aishwarya, final question to you. As I said, like ABI is the kind of NASCOM of AI, and you also referred, it's very, very hard to find out what is a very niche use case. Madhu was also referring to, very niche and deep use case. And everybody understand it's very, very hard at the innovation stage. It's not like you can copy from somewhere and then try to just copy and build it. And the ABI focuses the 10 to 100 feet view, build a very niche, small use case at the ground, like, get your hands dirty and so on. Do you see many other communities doing that, or do you see a huge gap that ABI can fill with this approach?
To me, the charter of any community like yours shouldn't be restricted to, startups and whatever, because we also spoke about funds and, for example, a lot of large organizations are investing in AI. I mean, from our largest banks to largest global banks. My husband works for one, he's in their AI practice. So we can pool in a lot of resources around AI is what I feel, instead of just keeping it to, of course, I mean, we need those, what do you call those, entrepreneurial spirit as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the collective can achieve much more as a charter. If you bring in the government, if you bring in larger stakeholders, the budget part could get taken care of. And of course, you will have a ready-made base of potential clients as well that you will be building up, because organizations which are investing in, there is a PwC study in financial services I'm seeing, which says 40% of organizations are already thinking of center of excellences around AI. Now, if you could just sort of get the community going with larger ecosystem participants like that, I think the sponsorship angle also gets taken care of and the collaboration opportunities becomes bigger. I always feel any collective works better when it is more inclusive rather than exclusive. And especially for a charter like yours, which is to say, how do we take AI forward for the country? I feel maybe more ecosystem players and institutional participation would all be useful in taking it there, Atul. Just my 2 cents on this.
That's $1, that's not 2 cents. So thank you very much. And we close the call with this note. Then ABI, this is like kind of 5% whatever we do right now in the events. We highly recommend taking the actions, doing iterations, and so on. So once we get together, like Aishwarya, as you said, like pooling the resources, we work with the speakers. Like we can have early adopters as clients, investors, and so on. We keep on working for 3 to 6 months, 1 year, and so on. That's a goal, like even years and years with the speakers and communities, not only startups, but the speakers and beyond. So with that note, I think we are well ahead of time, like 8 minutes before. So thank you very much. We can close the call. What have taken? Yeah. Thank you guys then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.